There are four ways governments make trillions of dollars in debt disappear without most people ever noticing, and one of them is happening in your country right now. Every day, headlines shout about government spending, rising deficits, and record debt levels. It feels like the numbers are getting out of control. But what rarely gets explained is how countries deal with that debt after it piles up. The scale of the problem is enormous. Global debt reached $346 trillion by the third quarter of 2025. To put that into perspective, it is more than 4 times the size of the entire global economy. Government debt alone stands at $102 trillion, and projections show it could reach $130 trillion by 2028. Looking at numbers like these, it is natural to assume collapse should be inevitable. If any household or business carried debt this large compared to its income, it would not survive. Yet throughout history, countries have found ways to live with these numbers without triggering the economic disasters they seem to imply. That is because reducing debt does not always mean paying it back the way individuals do. Sometimes it means making the debt worth less. Sometimes it means shifting who holds the debt, and sometimes it means letting time and inflation quietly do the work. These are not theoretical ideas from economics textbooks. They are real strategies governments are using right now. One of the clearest examples is Japan. By most standards, Japan should have collapsed under its debt burden long ago. Its debt to GDP ratio exceeds 250%, making it one of the most indebted countries in the world. And yet, Japanese government bonds remain stable, interest rates stay low, and the economy continues to function. The reason is simple but rarely discussed. The Bank of Japan has purchased more than 46% of all outstanding Japanese government bonds. In effect, Japan is lending money to itself. By keeping the debt inside its own system, the government insulates itself from global market pressure. This approach is not accidental, and it is not an emergency measure. It is a deliberate strategy, commonly referred to as quantitative easing, though economically it functions as debt monetization. The central bank creates new money and uses it to buy government debt. This lowers borrowing costs and moves the debt onto the central bank's balance sheet. The United States has used a similar approach, though on a smaller scale relative to its economy. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet expanded from $4 trillion to nearly $9 trillion in just 2 years. During that period, the Fed purchased large amounts of treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities, effectively financing government spending through money creation. Although the Fed has since reduced its holdings to $6.54 trillion, it still owns roughly 23% of all outstanding U.S. government debt. But direct debt monetization is only one method. History shows that governments often rely on quieter and more subtle strategies. One of the most powerful is financial repression. While the term sounds technical, the idea is straightforward. Governments keep interest rates artificially low, while inflation gradually reduces the real value of debt. They do this by using regulations to encourage or require banks, pension funds, and insurance companies to hold government bonds. At the same time, interest rates are kept below the inflation rate. Over time, bondholders lose purchasing power, while the government's debt burden shrinks in real terms. This strategy was highly effective after World War II. In 1945, the United States had a debt-to-GDP ratio of 106%. By 1974, that ratio had fallen to 23%. This reduction happened without dramatic austerity measures or extraordinary economic growth. Instead, it was driven by sustained financial repression combined with moderate inflation that averaged around 4% per year. From 1942 to 1951, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates low, often below inflation. Government bonds paid returns that failed to keep up with rising prices. At the same time, regulations required financial institutions to hold government debt. The result was a steady transfer of value from bondholders to the government, allowing the debt burden to shrink quietly over time. Economists Carmen Reinhart and Maria Bellansbrancia calculated that financial repression reduced United States debt by an average of 3 to 4% of GDP each year. Over a decade, this added up to a significant reduction without explicit defaults or major spending cuts. Similar patterns occurred across other developed countries, where debt to GDP ratios fell from around 100% in 1945 to about 20% by 1970. From a political standpoint, financial repression is attractive because it operates largely out of public view. Unlike tax increases or spending cuts, it works through financial mechanisms most people do not follow closely. Bond yields, reserve requirements, and capital regulations sound technical, not political. Today, central banks avoid the term financial repression, preferring phrases like accommodation or forward guidance, but the underlying mechanics are the same. When the European Central Bank purchases government bonds, when the Bank of Japan commits to near-zero interest rates, or when the Federal Reserve signals that rates will remain lower for longer, they are using modern versions of the same strategy. The third major way governments reduce debt is through restructuring or default. This is the most direct method and often the most visible. That is why governments usually treat it as a last resort. In recent years, several countries have gone down this path. Ghana restructured its debt in 2024, negotiating a 37% haircut on $13 billion owed to international bondholders. The process took 8 months, aided by coordination through the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable. Sri Lanka's situation was even more severe. After defaulting on its external debt, the country secured agreements that forgave $3 billion outright and restructured another $25 billion. Repayment periods were extended to 20 years with lower interest rates. A bond exchange in December 2024 achieved 98% participation. Restructuring openly acknowledges that the original debt cannot be repaid as promised. In exchange for relief, countries often commit to economic reforms. Sri Lanka implemented significant fiscal and structural changes as part of an IMF-supported program. However, restructurings come with real costs. In net present value terms, bondholders in Ghana and Zambia experienced losses of around 50%, higher than the historical average of 37% for sovereign restructurings between 1970 and 2010. These losses are ultimately absorbed by pension funds, insurance companies, and other long-term investors. The fourth and most powerful debt reduction mechanism is inflation itself. Not hyperinflation, but controlled, moderate inflation that steadily reduces debt over time. Inflation reduces the real value of fixed debt. A temporary 1 percentage point increase in inflation can lower the debt to gross domestic product ratio by roughly 0.5 to 1 percentage point. For long-term debt, the effect is even larger. Research shows that unexpected inflation of 2.5% reduces the real value of federal debt by 4%, while 5% inflation reduces it by 19%. For heavily indebted countries, these effects translate into enormous reductions. Inflation works automatically. It requires no legislation, no negotiations, and no public announcements. History shows how effective this can be. After World War II, inflation rates of 12.9% in 1946 and 11% in 1947 helped reduce United States wartime debt. Across advanced economies, real interest rates were negative for about half the period between 1945 and 1980, allowing inflation to consistently erode debt. More recent examples show the same pattern. Argentina experienced inflation nearing 300% in 2024. While this caused severe economic disruption, it also sharply reduced the real value of peso-denominated debt. Argentina recorded its first primary fiscal surplus in over a decade, 1.8% of gross domestic product, partly because inflation eliminated much of its domestic debt burden. The challenge for policymakers is balance. Too little inflation does little to reduce debt. Too much inflation damages the broader economy. Central banks aim for targets around 2%, while using tools to keep government borrowing costs manageable. Modern financial markets make these strategies harder to implement than they were in the past. Capital moves quickly across borders, seeking higher returns. In response, central banks have developed new tools such as forward guidance, quantitative easing, and yield curve control. These tools are more sophisticated, but the goal remains the same: reduce borrowing costs and allow debt to shrink relative to economic output. Japan again provides a clear example. By purchasing roughly 70% of newly issued government bonds each month, the Bank of Japan has effectively eliminated market pressure on government borrowing. Betting against Japanese government bonds has become consistently unprofitable. This approach allows Japan to finance itself at near zero cost. The trade-off is scale. The Bank of Japan's balance sheet has grown to 118% of gross domestic product, compared to 23% for the Federal Reserve and 41% for the European Central Bank. This raises concerns about long-term sustainability, but it has allowed Japan to manage an otherwise overwhelming debt burden. Looking ahead, these strategies face new pressures. Aging populations increase healthcare and pension spending. Climate change requires major investment. Geopolitical tensions complicate coordination across countries. At the same time, public awareness is growing. Financial repression works best when savers do not notice suppressed returns. Debt monetization is most effective when it is seen as temporary. Inflation-based debt reduction works when moderate price increases are accepted as normal. Despite these challenges, governments continue using these methods because alternatives are limited. Austerity is politically unpopular. Growth alone rarely outpaces debt. Defaults damage credibility. As a result, these quiet debt reduction strategies continue, refined and coordinated across central banks. The Federal Reserve's recent balance sheet reduction allowed $2.4 trillion in assets to mature without replacement, reflecting this careful balancing act. The Bank of Japan's gradual reduction in bond purchases signals a similar approach. For individuals, understanding these mechanisms matters. Low interest rates reduce returns on savings. Inflation erodes purchasing power. Asset prices often rise faster than wages. These effects are not accidental, they are built into the way governments manage debt. The story of how nations quietly erase trillions in debt reveals the financial engineering behind modern economies. While public attention stays on deficits and spending, the real work happens through central banks, bond markets, and inflation. The question is not whether governments will continue using these methods, but how they will evolve as conditions change and awareness grows. The global debt mountain will not disappear through repayment alone. It will continue to be managed quietly, gradually, and largely out of public view. So how do you see this quiet transfer from savers to governments? Is it necessary economic management or a hidden form of taxation? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, kindly subscribe to our channel for more factual breakdowns of how money works. I will see you in the next one.